Hello and welcome to another episode of Empty Plates Full Stories. Today we are with Scott Massey with Anu. And would you just want to introduce yourself for the fans here?
Good morning, and thank you for having me. I'm Scott Massey, the co-founder and CEO of Anu, based here in Evansville, Indiana.
Perfect. So just to get started, do you want to maybe kind of define food insecurity in a place like Evansville here for those who may not be familiar?
Yeah, absolutely. The definition of food security, at least from the USDA, is an individual or a family unit that is of an inconvenient distance to food procurement. And that could be either just an outright lack of food. Maybe there's no food options in the neighborhood that you're in. Maybe you're in a rural environment and you're kind of remote away from more urban environments where there's a concentration of food providers. But what we really like to address is nutrition insecurity, to go just one level deeper than that. Because what is food? It's the calories, the nutrients that our bodies need to live and thrive. But actually looking at the nutrient density is where we really specialize. So looking all the way down at the nutritional value, not just food, but really healthy, good food for the individual. That's what we're really going after in doing so in an approach that we call nutritional sovereignty, empowering the individual, the family unit, the community to become self-sufficient in growing and producing their own healthy food.
Yeah. So I know you just started the ANU project. Do you want to kind of just describe how that's helping food insecurity and just kind of what that does?
Sure. So I'm a product of Evansville. I was born and raised here in this city. I was fortunate to go to Purdue University, studied mechanical engineering technology, and around my junior year at Purdue, I was recruited by NASA. And I
Wow.
had really fun.
Oh my gosh.
I don't know if they should have picked me necessarily.
Wow, yeah.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was part of the team that designed the cultivation chamber that's currently on the space station today, growing
Wow.
vegetables.
Oh,
That is testing the methods in which humans will grow food on the lunar and the Martian surface, which I think is
Wow.
sooner than a lot of people realize.
Yeah.
Students in high school today will live with the reality of humans living on the lunar surface by the time they graduate college. And that's something
Wow.
Oh my gosh.
exciting.
That's crazy.
That's insane to even like think about.
Yeah.
It's happening fast. It's the Artemis moon mission. And while that is fascinating and I fully support all of these efforts, to me it seems strange, really, that there's these technologies that we call controlled environment agriculture. If I am to describe that, think of like a greenhouse, but a vertical farm that can grow year round, independent of any seasons. These technologies exist, yet food deserts persist. There's this big disconnect between what people really need to be consuming. And to me, it seemed inevitable that this would become a commonplace solution. And so, as a student, when I was about your all's age, I invented some technologies that improved yield densities, made it much easier to use, created what we describe as Keurig for plants. And I'll hold up here our little seed pod. Looks a little bit like a Keurig coffee pod.
Yeah.
Instead of coffee grounds, it contains seeds and growing media and nutrients so that anybody can plant and harvest from a system.
Wow.
Really that same level of expertise, you might say, to harvest produce from a refrigerator.
Yeah.
Realistically, you're just taking it out. We want to make that as intuitive and simple to grow and consume very healthy produce at the point of consumption. That's really what Anu is. We develop these modular, self-contained hydroponic grow systems that allow institutions to grow and source produce right here on campus, like U of E with the We Grow Aces program.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's actually really cool because
Yeah.
my mom started getting into gardening and she has like stuff like that. And I was like, wow, when I saw that, I was like, full circle moment right there.
So she has a hydroponic unit at home?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, she does.
Tabletop or vertical unit?
Tabletop.
Okay, is it the Miracle Grow Aero Garden by chance?
No idea. She got it off of Amazon. So I have no idea. But that's just crazy. So because you work with We Grow Aces, can you just explain the project and what impact you've actually seen so far?
Yeah, and I think I play a small part on We Grow Aces. Dr. Shelby has been the visionary behind the program, and he views this, I believe, as a fundamental human right to not just have access to healthy food, but to be intellectually equipped, to be spiritually ready, really, to grow and produce your own food. Our role in that, we think of ourselves as like blacksmiths making armor for like a knight going into battle. That's kind of how we see our role in the relationship. We build, we design, we develop these grow systems. We hire University of Evansville alumni. So U of E actually has played a direct role in the development build and manufacture of these technologies here locally in Evansville. But what it looks like is a shipping container or a modular container structure. One sits just a couple blocks away from here at the corner of Lincoln and Weinbach next to the greenhouse, which can grow vegetables inside year round.
Oh, wow.
It's in its early days, but based on the results that we've seen so far with prior efforts to address nutritional insecurity in the community, we've seen an awakening, this kind of curiosity, a childlike wonder that when someone grows vegetables, they start asking all these questions like, what is this? Why does it taste so good? And they start figuring out what may have been wrong with the food supply chain, and they get really excited about how they can play a role in making it right.
So a lot of people think food insecurity is just about like the money. Where does food production technology fit into solving that?
I think it really has to do with the individual. It really has to do with lifting up the individual. I'm sure we're all familiar with the expression that if you give a man a fish, you feed him for a day. If you teach him how to fish, you feed him for life. So I think respecting human dignity above all else and empowering the individual to be self-sufficient, the way our ancestors lived. Almost everybody in this country 100 years ago or so was a farmer to some extent. And it's a tragedy, frankly, that we've kind of broken away from that model, that year after year, fewer and fewer people participate in agriculture. And I think the evidence of that is quite clear. Not only do many people in our city and other large cities throughout the country live in food deserts where they lack access to food, but we're also seeing the highest rate of chronic diseases our nation has ever experienced. At least half of all Americans have a chronic disease, whether it's type 2 diabetes or heart disease, entirely preventable diseases. And if we do want to talk about the money, if we do want to talk about the numbers, I mean, it's horrifically impactful. We spend as a nation $4 trillion a year battling diet-related chronic diseases, which are preventable.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Because of the food choices we consume. That's why we're in the military.
Yeah.
That's roughly 90% of our whole healthcare expenditure as a nation is towards preventable diseases. And I mean, just to really understand the human toll of that, more Americans die in 1 year from these chronic diseases than the totality of every American casualty of war combined.
Wow. Oh my gosh.
That's insane.
So, I mean, that's just the scope of the problem. But the uplifting point here is that we can empower the individual and giving them the ability to produce their own food. We give them agency, we give them nutritional sovereignty. So yes, there's an immediate economic analysis that we can present that if we can show if they eat these healthy vegetables, they can reduce these chronic diseases, and that's very immediate, tangible cost savings. But it's also empowering private enterprise. It's giving these individuals tools, the wherewithal, the ability to stand up and operate their own businesses. And that to me creates this kind of economic agency that can lead to multi-generational wealth creation. That if an individual owns their business, grows it, no matter how small the start of that is, that can multiply year over year and really turn the tide of these food deserts that we're seeing today.
That's just crazy. I can't get my head wrapped around that.
No, that is insane.
The numbers and stuff, that's insane.
Yeah. So when it comes to systems like yours and just everything you're working with, do you think it's realistic to help communities with food deserts? Like, do you think this is something that could really make a big impact, or do you think maybe it could be too expensive for some, or, kind of factors like that?
I believe it's not only achievable, but I believe it's an imperative thing that we must do. We must do. Look at the dollars that are being spent. Look at the number of lives that are being lost. If I were to ask you, what's the greatest enemy? What's the greatest threat the United States faces today? It's the war on our health. There's very clearly this war being waged on our health. And our city has a really proud history of rising to the occasion of these kind of external threats when we feel compelled to really mobilize ourselves. In World War II, many of the fighter planes, the ammunitions, the armaments, the boats used to win the war and free the world from tyranny were made here in Evansville.
Oh, yeah.
So Evansville has this illustrious manufacturing history, particularly with controlled environment appliances. There was a heavy appliance manufacturing industry here, and Evansville today continues to be a major plastics manufacturing hub as well. Those two areas of expertise, controlled environment appliances, translate so well into controlled environment farming. And the industries that build polymer goods today are exactly the types of industries that we're partnering with to make our seed pod consumables that are compostable. So I really view this as imperative, and the data that we're starting to see is very profound. Based on the data from some of our healthcare institutions, hospitals that are customers of ours, they have found that if they can reverse type 2 diabetes through diet and lifestyle changes, this is called lifestyle medicine, where we enroll the individual in a physical activity regimen, essentially the same lifestyle you all probably have as athletes. You're given guidance on nutrition. I'm sure you're given guidance on behavioral lifestyle choices that leads to a good sleep pattern.
Oh, for sure.
There's a
Yeah.
lot of guidance. What if we could provide that same level of guidance to every American?
Yeah.
The cost savings are immense. If you can reverse type 2 diabetes, it's well over $20,000 a year in cost savings.
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow.
So I believe it's absolutely imperative, but these technologies have to be very efficient. They need to use a very small amount of energy. They need to be very labor efficient. There needs to be a small amount of time invested by the individual to produce a great quantity of food. And that means we need to mobilize some highly capable minds here in Evansville. That's why I'm proud to hire from U of E and have interns from U of E as well that help us make that possible.
Wow. So, what do you hope the future looks like when it comes to solving food insecurity?
I believe that the future of solving food insecurity will look a lot like the way we get ice today. I'm going to make an analogy here. The way we get ice today is pretty simple and intuitive. You go to the refrigerator and you pick some ice out. It hasn't always been that way. Think 150 years ago, before refrigeration, before refrigerators, our ancestors had to wait for it to cold outside.
Yeah.
And then water was frozen, and then you would have ice whenever the season allowed it. Then we had refrigeration factories, giant factories that would freeze ice and deliver to you a perishable block of water. You had a system of dependency. You would keep buying ice over and over again. I presume if you all are like the other 99.9% of Americans, you either own or have access to a refrigerator.
Yeah.
And you are now ice sovereign. You are producing your own ice. You are self-sufficient in that. I envision a future that ice and produce being one of the same, mostly a water-based good, both being highly perishable, both dependent on an environmental process to produce the good in question at the final stage. I think having produce accessibility will be as commonplace as being able to get ice from the refrigerator. And I see this becoming is a personalist appliance where even family units themselves can grow and consume their own produce. But it takes a village to usher that sort of change. We need to work with healthcare and education institutions like U of E that are initiating these food as medicine programs to really nurture the individual from cradle to career, giving that highly nutritious produce availability to a young person, ideally, so that those habits last into adulthood, and then they can be a very high contributory member of society following that conversion. We need to build our collective nutritional and health literacy to accelerate this inevitable transition that I believe will happen. And I think no city is more suited to lead this transition than Evansville here.
Yeah.
Now.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
No, I love that analogy you use because I think that really simplifies it and shows people how realistic that could be, especially going back to, how hard things were, like just getting ice back in the day, but now it's things people don't even think of. So, I mean, to wrap it up here is if there's anything else you'd like to say about food insecurity for listeners out there or anything?
I think when it comes to food insecurity, we need to have hope. We need to have hope. And hope is predicated on there being uncertainty and fear. Hope can't really exist without fear and uncertainty first existing as the foundation, because hope is that response. And I think there's a lot to be hopeful for. I think there's a lot to be excited and optimistic about the future. To me, We Grow ACEs is the answer to the call of nutritional and food insecurity here in Evansville. And if we can solve it here, we can solve it in all the other adjacent cities. I think Cincinnati, St. Louis, I think all these areas that have similar issues as well can learn from Evansville. I think Evansville can once again be a leader in bridging industry and thought leadership and universities together to have a collective unified front towards this very, very serious problem. But I feel very optimistic that University of Evansville is leading that charge now.
Oh, that's great. Well, and that is all the questions that we have. Is there anything else that you want to add on or?
No, I would say if you want to follow this journey as we grow as a business, Grow Anew is our social media handle. That's GROWANU. That's also our website URL domain name. We are an employer. We're hiring. We're growing our ranks. We also have internship programs. Neva Verbeek here at U of E's campus is one of our interns. She's been a very valuable member. She's contributed in an incredible way to the company. And we love investing in talent and seeing them to grow and flourish as an individual and hopefully become a part of our organization.
That's wonderful. Well, so that is all for us today. Thank you so much for coming out. And that is the end of our Empty Plates Full Story podcast episode for today. So thanks for joining us.